have not used my voice. I've not spoken what was true for me. And when we do that, when we just let abuse or noise or distorted self-expressions from others who are incomplete within themselves for whatever reason, when we just tolerate that, then it starts to get into our inner domain,
Mm.
mentally, emotionally, somatically. And so our inner programming gets wired and programmed according to what's being expressed. It's like we're all writing stories and codes, I should say, but stories is one that codes into each other as we speak and as we listen. There's a creative flow here. And as we all know, it's not always great. There's people in our lives why do I come away feeling so crappy after a conversation with this human being?
Mm.
Some of them are subtle like that. You don't, like maybe even like at first you're fine, but then you leave and it's like, why does that feel so weird?
Yeah, you're like unknown. There's some just subconscious experience you have
Hmm.
around some people. Other times it's very conscious. You're like, fucking get me away from that fucking person.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So the need
but
to practice
when you're in a
self-awareness.
relationship that literally you're tied, you're tethered, you are never going to get away from the relationship with your father. At least emotionally, at least experientially. Like you're left with these time and time again experiences of this person. And then there's the
Well, that's why
who
they need to
they're
be
supposed
handled.
to be.
So memories need to be handled.
Hmm.
And I'm not just talking about like mental memories. I'm like mental, emotional, somatic memory, right? There's three layers of memory, and that's another distinction that's not taught to us when we grow up. Like we just
Hmm.
make everything about the mind. And that's why so many people are trapped. And that may be intentional by some people in power because if I can keep you in ignorance about how you really function and how life really works through a human being, I can take advantage of you. That's the alchemist shadow of the manipulator. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they use their conscious awareness of these invisible fields of function against us, right? To deceive. And so that's definitely happening. There's no doubt about it. There's all kinds of dark psychology through politics and marketing and all kinds of other crazy forces out there. And it's done on a human to human level, just people who are maybe not so big in power, these big giant forces. Like sometimes it's
Hmm.
just we figure this stuff out on our own to try and survive.
Hmm.
But we got to learn this domain and we got to handle the energy. We got to handle the memory that has lodged within our mind, emotions, and our body. So maybe I can't escape my dad, was your kind of statement, right? Like that he's my dad. The fact is, that's how it was. I grew up with this guy. Like it is what it is, right? But the cool thing is that I can restore integrity within myself by handling the energetic memory, which is reclaiming power, right? Instead of abandoning power, which is what I realize I've been doing so much of my life because there was always this one. My dad was a protector for me because why? I didn't start living with him till I was 11, 10, I think 11. My mom was abused by her soon to be next husband. And she gave us up to my dad because she realized this was a bad situation for my sister and I, and she was pregnant and she didn't want to leave him. So now my dad's taking care of me out of that, which was already traumatizing and scary as all can be. And then my dad, I didn't feel safe around him because my mother fed me all these things that were true about him, right? But she told me all this stuff, and he was threatening to take me and her away from my mom. So like I looked at my dad as a dangerous person, but at the same time, my dad was a protector. So I'm simultaneously living in this weird conflict as a 10-year-old boy of this man might kidnap my sister and I, but he's the only one who can protect me and my sister right now.
Hmm.
So it's just weird. And then he was
Yeah.
violent at times,
What
and
a
then
conflict.
yeah, and like I'm just a little kid growing up in this atmosphere, and like what do I know? And so it's for me, it's been years and years and years of the life of crime and drug dealing and violence and all that blossomed out of that confusion. Breaking away from that though wasn't a completion by any means of my interior. I didn't complete the memory. I didn't handle the energetic imprints. I'm
Hmm.
47. I'm still handling energetic imprints because of a more recent encounter. Because
Hmm.
yeah, you can get complete and clear, like truly clear, but your interactions in the present time can actually put new things in that you have to deal with again. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, the energetic
I think
memory
that's
has to be
where I
handled.
wanted to lead is that completion is really only in a moment.
Yeah.
And there's always something that can re-trigger to become incomplete. You can become incomplete at any moment because of your current mindset, because of your current emotional health, because of your current physical health, right? Like all these things in our dimension of life impact how it is that we be complete. But what's really interesting, and this is where you have such great insight, is that there's one foundational place we can stand, which is spiritual. Our spiritual foundation, when we're standing in completion there, all the others seem to unfold, right? That is the core source. And we're
Mm,
talking about being connected to God. We're talking about what this other spiritual essence really is and how it is that when you're connected there, all the other things have opportunities to complete your mental, your emotional, your somatic place. And that's really the saving grace that all human beings have if they know how to connect. And this is our mission, right? So let me ask you, Vince, first off, if there's anything you want to add that, by all means, go. But more in from a spiritual sense, how do we stand here in the spirit, this moment, right now, and find completion once again?
mm. That's beautiful, man. Again, just thank you for your insight and your articulative way of bringing forth such rich and vibrant conversation. That was really, there was a lot that opened up for me as you were speaking. And the first thing that was coming through is that God is the heartbeat of the universe. We need to understand God differently than religious perspectives give us. Uh, God is often presented as other and separate. And it's important to have that distinction a little bit because how else can we make the transition from limitation and constraint of identity to something greater unless we're willing to believe there is a greater than what I am? So there is that need for that distinction. At the same time, though God is greater than us, God is equally in us, and we are made to walk in alignment with that. So when I say God is the heartbeat of the universe, it's like we need to see God as the life substance from which everything in this world arises,
Hmm.
that we derive our life from day in and day out. And alignment with that is what, righteousness is. It's living in alignment with the heartbeat of the universe, which means your actions, well, let's go back up. Your mind, your emotions, your body, and your activity is flowing straight from that universal heartbeat. So
Hmm.
if the heart and the body and mind, we know if the body mind is in integrity with itself, things are operating well. There's low stress in the system.
Hmm.
There's a higher immunity. There's just greater overall health and well-being. Well,
Yeah.
we have to look at all of the world and the universe ultimately, which is beyond our comprehension in a sense. But like, just think about our planet, even our local family, let's say we are part of a heartbeat rhythm, and either we're bringing others into alignment with the heartbeat of life, which would be Jesus saying you're either for me or you're against me, right? So
Hmm.
religion makes it about conceptual belief systems that you need to accept and doctrines you need to align with. What I say it is it's alignment with life's true essence. He, Jesus, and the Bible stories and other religious texts, including Bhagavad Gita, which has, very cool stories too, right? They're all pointing to what alignment with the substance of life, this thing we call God or Krishna or the Atman and all these different higher language points. They're beautiful. All of them make, if you're willing to take a look honestly at the essence of the meaning of these words, they're all in agreement. There's no argument
It
with one
is
another.
divine. It is what,
Yeah,
how do you fathom what is divine? If you don't, if you're not, if you would be turned off by that statement, it's because you do not have a concept for what is not divine and what is divine. You don't
yeah.
understand divine.
So divine is pure, universal substance,
Hmm.
and it may manifest and express as religious language and practice, and that could be
Concepts and
concept
stories
Buddhism,
and
sitting in meditation.
hmm.
It's one of the key components in my life that created alignment with righteousness.
Yeah.
Like I was out of alignment. I wasn't in the church. I wasn't reading the Bible. I was sitting quietly doing nothing because of learning Zen Buddhism. And I started to come into alignment. I started to become aware of my internal world. I started to notice my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions. I started to transcend the reactive conditioning of my body mind.
Yes.
That wasn't the end of my story. I met Jesus afterwards because that is a there's a climactic point that I want to make, that Jesus really is the name above all names, the God of gods, and there's a reason why. And religion has kind of perverted that for us, but he, as a symbol, his name and his character represents something that is closer to the Father or to God than the other things, the other characters. But that does not invalidate the other characters. It doesn't make anything less. The sun is not better than the flower. The flower is a manifestation because of sun energy working through earth, right? That makes it happen. The flower is infinitely smaller than the sun, and yet it's still freaking beautiful. So,
Equally beautiful and
certain
valid.
religious
Yeah.
expressions, stories, characters, they're, to me, they're all like flowers and they're plants and trees. And, what we have is people just attacking and hacking in religion, especially Christianity, especially cutting down every other religious thing because they find some of it is distorted. There are
Mm.
distortions, but if you look at Christianity too, there's massive distortions in Christianity. Tons of
Yes.
religious abuse happening and people getting. I was in a whole thread yesterday of a guy who's like, I just talking about leaving the Christian cult, and it's like, and it was just like people commenting all their experiences, and it's like, yeah, there's just a tremendous amount of distortion there too. And so
Mm.
we have to have a more refined way of understanding religion as a universal reality
Mm.
at its core that manifests in, various symbological and practical expressions that may differ. And there are
Yeah.
some that are distorted and do cause more suppression and harm inside of all the religions. It doesn't matter where we go. So when we talk
Yeah.
about God here,
Preach.
the Invincible
Preach it.
Man is about alignment with truth, and truth transcends doctrine. Truth transcends, religious beliefs and perspective. Truth is about an experiential encounter with reality, and I
Mm.
think that's what I've always wanted to get through. Was like, reality is greater than your belief system. Well, then
Mm.
people are, well, how do you get to reality? It's like, you need to ask hard questions. And you need to do the work that most of us are not challenging ourselves enough or challenging each other enough to find out what's really real. And it's like
Mm.
Yahweh as a Hebrew name means I am that I am. It's self-existing one. It's a pointer to something that you can't change. The isness of reality. And it's like, when you get that that's the Bible comes out of that, then you need to start listening deeper and you need to go beyond the superficial perspectives of stories, and and realize, like, how does this reflect my reality, or not my reality, I should say, because reality is not personal. That's
Mm.
personality, right? Reality at a universal level is like, no, you don't mess with that. Like, your individual nature and yeses or nos to it don't affect it. And this is, humans don't understand that distinction. It's like, I got my own belief system and I've got, like, um, dude, there's something fundamental, unchanging. Like, just because you don't believe in gravity does not mean that when you jump off the building that you're going to fly.
Yes.
You
Yes.
don't, your belief system doesn't alter reality.
That's right. And that is what we're here for, is for real talk, for people to get in reality about what is that underlying heartbeat. That was such a beautiful
Mm,
expression and articulation you just gave there.
thanks,
And
man.
that's what it is. There's a heartbeat of divine nature that you might call God, you might call Jesus, and it can be found. And frankly, this is my walk going from atheism, it does not exist, to
Mm,
agnostic, like maybe there's something out there and I don't know about it, to that was clearly an experience of divine nature. And I had that through sitting in meditation. To
mm,
I can't stand a fucking Christian and their dominating behaviors. And I've been
mm,
growing up with this shit my whole life, to encountering you and being like, wait, he's got a perspective about the Bible that I can actually listen to. You're
mm,
talking about the same experience that I've had before, right?
mm,
And that's when I'm finally like, hey,
mm,
I get it. You call it whatever you fucking call it. If it makes you a better person, it works. It works for all of us. And if I could just get your ear as a human being for 1 second, just get this. Whatever you believe spiritually, if you can be a proponent of any other belief that benefits people in their awareness level, we're going to win. I just looked up what is the percentage of people who believe in a higher power in America? What do you think it is, Vince?
wow. That was pretty high, probably. It's got to be around the 60s plus.
Yeah, 88%.
Okay, cool.
88% believe in a higher power.
Yeah.
but this world does not occur as people who believe in a higher power. Does it to you? It doesn't to me.
Because it's probably more conceptual. Like if you press somebody to ask, like, well, yeah, I think it's out there, but it's like it's not a pressing need or a pressing interest
And it's not
to
the
find out.
experience you were talking about,
Right.
not the
Exactly.
experiential reality that
No,
we walk with.
because most of us are encoded with the Matrix is such a good, metaphor of what's going on in the world. Like we are literally under a program's influence. From the
Mm,
day we're conceived, we're already under the programming of mother in her body and father's
mhm,
energy. Joe Dispenza just did a great training on how impactful the emotional energy of the parents are at the point of conception on DNA and genetic unfoldment of the soon to be developing embryo.
mm,
And there's a whole perspective and scientific approach of viewing that I just never heard before. And I was like, damn. And like it matters, dad's intention, with mom in that moment. It's going to have an impact on the child's developing immunity and, self-regulatory nature and, the nervous system unfolding. There's more to it. And I'm just
mm,
like, oh my God. And it makes sense when you finally really like start to dig through these layers of how stuff works.
mhm,
And that's what I'm interested in. And I think that's what always prevented me from getting trapped up in religion was that I've just been a scientist since I was really little. I've always had this inquiry, like, how does things work? My mom told me, she's like, you took apart all your toys. Like, I would literally break them apart and put them back together because I wanted to understand why does it do what it does? Like, I just had this, I was interested in function and form and like mechanics,
mhm. Yeah.
cause and effect relationships in things in life. And so
Mm,
that frame of interest has allowed me to, even when it was like, all right, my life as a criminal drug dealer doesn't work.
mm,
How did I get here? I need to deconstruct my identity and I need to figure out, like, my natural inquiry was like, how did I get here? What led me to this? And as I just asked that simple question and was sitting in meditation a lot, I started to get answers. Like when you ask, you do receive, right? At an
yeah.
internal level, especially. And I started to just see all the different decisions that were made, conclusions that were formed, but more than that, the deeper level of motivation that caused those conclusions for. So there's a science to how we function. And to me, I love religions and I love Christianity and the Bible and others too that I study deeply. But I don't buy into the blind acceptance of what's there superficially. I want to understand, how does this relate to me directly, experientially? It's the realist in me. I'm not a realist as like a skeptic that just denies any other possible greater truths. Like, no, that's foolishness, right? That's like deliberate blindness.
Mm,
But I'm skeptical in a way that's like refining for truth. Like I'm a purifier. I put things in the crucible. I want to break shit down, heat it up, melt it all, and
yeah.
figure out what's pure and what's impure and separate those two things.
Yeah. And I believe the younger generations are more like that, right? And this is where you and I share is just because you tell me doesn't mean I want to believe it. Let's show the experiment. Let's do it,
Mm,
right? And this is what I wanted to really get to the audience is that we have the tools. If you want to experience God, if you want to know the next level of connection, if you want to understand the next experience of the heartbeat, we've got the ways. And you go look them up. We'll just give it to you right now. You just get in touch with yourself.
yeah.
That's not easy.
Yeah, I was gonna say that
That
it's
takes
it's
something.
truth, but we don't know how. What does that
Yeah.
look like?
And how
Especially
do we
when
do
we've
that?
been living a lie for so many years and our self-definition has been shaped and molded by a lot of otherness
Mm,
that we believe is our self
mm,
doing.
yeah.
And so the coming face to face with that is not easy because it's literally your identity unravels.
Mm.
And I was in a landmark training for ILP. I wasn't doing ILP, but I was course manager or something like that. I was sitting to serve.
You were just
And
serving. Yeah.
and at the very beginning, he said, joining this program is not a good idea for your identity. And when he said that, it just clicked so hard. And I was like, wow. Because what was about to happen for these newbies was we're gonna take a look at your beliefs, your assumptions, what you hold to be near, dear, and true about yourself, and really just put it to the light. And that takes courage.
Mm,
It's a leader's program, right? You can't be a
yeah.
leader and just be ordinary and average. Like you have to be willing to go somewhere that nobody else has gone or very few people are going.
Mm,
So as the Invincible Man, you know, our commitment through bringing brothers together and men together is that they get to discover the leadership. But you cannot lead if you don't know what you're leading to. If you're
mm,
not in integrity and alignment with the heartbeat of the universe itself in your own life and
mm,
relationships, then how in the world are you going to expand power as a leader, which is what are you leading for? If it's not the expansion of power, what's the point? You know,
yeah.
power is not dominance. Power is the expansion of the fuel that gives life and rise to everything that is. And so we want
Mm,
to expand that. That's part being having eternal life is not some thing that happens when we die. Now I get to live as an ego forever. This is another just distorted ego perspective that just it comforts the ego that wants to be itself. It doesn't want to be the bigger thing. But the true nature of eternal life is to become one with the expanded life potential and live at that level where it's like so selfless that you become truly positively selfish as like the divine self.
mm, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. That is good. No, and what it brings out is like, if you don't know, it's that you get to be altruistic to be selfish and selfish
That's
to be
right.
altruistic. And it's just such a
That's right.
beautiful thing
Mm,
that if you really looked what is best for you, what is most selfish is actually to be altruistic, right? And that's the
exactly.
self-fulfilling give. That's the heartbeat that is living through all of us.
Mm,
And men need to wake up to it. And I say specifically men need to wake up to it before women because women are a little more in tune to it already. And men have fallen behind. Men have to go get back to this experience. And if you're, you know, out of 88%, that means there are 12% of people who are either agnostic or atheist. And that's okay. We love you too.
which
Because
really
we
means
want
they
you
just
to
don't
get,
trust the
you
crap that
just don't
they've
trust. And
heard
you can only trust
for
yourself.
good reason, probably.
Yeah. And that's perfect. We don't need you to have faith
Right.
in anything. So the way what we've constructed here is a men's group because we know when two or more are here, he is there. She, it, whatever you want to call it. The experience of divine comes with human connection. And this is the very basic level that I've found for anybody to find this, to find what real connection is between human beings, is the first intro that any human can experience to what is divine. And we can go from there back to, then that often can give the confidence for people to go deeper and find really what's there for themselves. Only like what's really in here and
Hmm.
what is this. And when people have the experience of what is this ego, this distinction, that's when the world's really going to pick up, right? If 88% of people believe conceptually, they're not far from having a conceptual experience of what God is to being on the heartbeat. And if we just had 16% of people in the heartbeat, the rest are going to flow. The rest by default will fall through the law of diffusion of innovation. We will have an aligned planet.
Hmm.
It's not far, but it is going to take men who have the courage to, at the very least, face yourself
Yeah.
and are willing to call other men into that crucible. Hey, man, alone, island, it's time. You need to come in. You need to be in communication with other men because men need to learn how to be with men. That's definitely the space this all starts from, and that's what we're here to do. What do you say, Vince?
Beautiful. Yeah. You know, it's the self-inquiry is the beginning of transformation. Most of us are too distracted, too busy, or we're depleting power
Mm.
through things like pornography and, you know, gaming. There's a lot of like men that are just escaping through
Escapist.
gaming. Um, they're just denying responsibility and power. They've never been led properly. It's, you know,
Mm.
if I just feel into it a little bit, I'm like, my God, my heart just goes, oh, it's like aching because I feel like there's so much pure potential that could be expressed in our world to make a difference. And they've been lured away or suppressed and pushed away into these corners and these pockets of powerlessness.
Mm.
And, it's like when I was a drug dealer, what was I trying to do? Seduce people, I was taught by another mentor drug dealer of mine, like to go get a job at restaurants because that's how you can make new connections. And
Mm.
that's what I did. And I would seduce that, befriend them, and I was a great personality connector, and I would befriend them and I'd like build that good energy. And then I would feel into the possibility of like introducing like some substance. And next thing you know, I got a new client. And it was like, I was living that manipulator world and I was profiting at the demise of others. And like, I think what so many don't realize is that this happens, and the marketing, the psychology of marketing is so refined. Like the wisdom and the knowledge that they have is so powerful that they are literally capable of baiting people in just like this. Social media does a really great job as well. They're literally working and using what they know about our nervous system, our brain, and our body to trigger responses that are almost uncontrollable by the average person for sure,
Mm.
right? And so some people just doom scrolling. Like I got clients struggle with like hours and hours of just da, da, da. I've fallen into that trap and like had
Sure.
to catch myself like, oh my God, like
Well, you just
because
look
there's
at, I
something
think what
there.
I hear you speaking to is they're making us powerless and they want
Yeah.
to keep that going. And
They're
they
taking
keep,
advantage of it.
yeah, they keep going. And here we are. We're all disparate islands
Hmm.
who no longer believe in the same 9 o'clock news that we saw yesterday night. We all have our own feed of our own information based on what we just have an inclination for. We're
Yeah.
islands. We're disconnected from each other and therefore more disconnected from the divine, is like really what
And
it is.
heavy, heavy consuming and
Mm.
depletion of creation. So there
Mm.
needs to be this circulation of consuming and creating, right? If you eat too much food, you get overweight, you get unhealthy. You consume too much social media, gaming, sex, anything, drugs,
Mm.
it starts to just take you down. And
Mm.
so men need to come into power for self-expression again. And there's way too much tolerance for not self-expressing. There's
Mm.
just a resignation to just be a disparate island, like you said, just this alone person. And men need to come back into alignment with power. And that only happens when you're in a space with other mature men doing the work, which means investigating consciousness,
Mm.
seeking understanding about what's going on in my world actually. Where am I
Mm.
losing power? Where do I actually gain power? What really is going to bring me aliveness? What's really causing deadness in my life? What are
Mm.
my thoughts, emotions, and feelings underneath my actions? How do they work? What can I do
Mm.
about all of that? And we create a safe place where that can happen. When I say safe, why does it need to be safe? That doesn't sound like a weak word. It's safe is like, can you just tell people that you're struggling with lust and that you have dark thoughts about this, that, and the other, and know that you're going to get a response that meets you in a supportive and healthy way?
Mm.
No, most of us
Most men
don't have
can't.
that.
Most
No,
men can't.
we because we know it, we're not wrong when we instinctively think if I were to say this, then this repercussion would happen. Like we intuit that. That's not an
Mm.
excuse to not find a place to speak, though. But that's what most
Mm.
of us do, right? We're not wrong in thinking that this is not good for me to talk
Safe.
about,
Yeah.
not safe. But you got to find the guys that you can do it with. And that's what, Brian, you've been that for me since I've met you, since day one. Your
Ditto.
listening is pristine and it's like I've never felt a degree of resistance and condemnation, only healthy challenge. Oh, and healthy challenge versus resistance or judgment is the distinction needs to be made because, like, your challenging is a challenge to go deeper into raw power.
Mm,
versus the commitment to losses of power.
mm,
Whereas
okay.
resistance and judgment is more like it's not a contribution to finding power. It becomes a block. It's a
Yeah.
suppressor. And you've never been that since I've known you.
Yeah. Well, ditto. I just say the same for you. And the challenge you're speaking to is what happens in men's group that doesn't happen in any other context of your life. If
Yeah.
you don't have men in your life that you are sharing with in the most authentic manner, nobody's challenging that.
Yeah.
Women are rarely challenging that. Your
Totally.
wife is definitely not challenging that.
Hmm.
You got a story and you're committed to what you believe is true. But if you don't have another man who's willing to step in and say, hey, there's something else you ain't seeing, bro, then you're always going to be kept in your own dark world. And frankly, you don't want that. You want the next level. And that comes with the light. And that comes with the Invincible Man men's group. So that's what we're really calling for. And we're calling for it on a worldwide basis. This is really just isn't about our brand. We want to give people the tools so that you have the confidence and the leadership to be another group leader. Call it whatever you want. You want to start another brand? Awesome. We want men to be in connection with men, but we have a method, we have an easy way. And if you want to use our brand, yeah, absolutely. Let's go. Right?
That's
That's what we're here
great.
for. So,
Great.
Vince, anything else you want to add before we kind of wrap up this episode? I guess one thing I want to throw in for you is just in completion in this moment with your dad. I want to be complete. I want you to be complete. I don't want to hold space for that. So, is there anything else to say, be, do, have for you to be complete with your dad?
Mm. Yeah, I need to go through a period of embracing my rage
Mm,
and continuing to express that in healthy ways, but it needs to be expressed and the stop tolerating what I have tolerated energetically, emotionally. There's the memories of tolerance is what I feel, and the
mm,
tolerance has caused those oppressive forces to take root in my soul. And so uprooting the rage is a way to counter. And a lot of men, especially, don't have comfortability with their own rage and anger emotions, like they're deeply suppressed. But I got to counter this force right now for a while and give myself complete permission to be like a fuck no and no more, like all the way through. I have taken that stand, but not completely enough. And my boundaries were not strong enough and my gates were not held. And there was infiltration of the
mm,
castle. And so
mm,
it's time to clean the castle, reclaim the power, stop preserving powerlessness through self abandonment
mm,
and the toleration of abusive and manipulative expressions
mm,
for whatever name, of goodness and of being a good son or being whatever. It's like, no, like choosing Vince 100% is actually choosing life because I'm committed to the heartbeat of the universe.
mm,
And there are people who are not working for that. And that's something that's hard for us to accept, especially when it's a family member. There are some people who have huge, distorted expressions that actively suppress this beautiful life that wants to flow through us. So that's what there is for me to be with going forward is to really honor what hasn't been honored. And I'm grateful for this conversation and what we're
mm,
exploring.
mm. Honor to thy who goes and walks and looks at thyself in the light.
Mm,
That's what I really get about you, Vince, and why I was immensely why I am immensely grateful to be your partner in this, but it just since we've known each other, it's just like you are such a great example of somebody who's willing to look at the ugly thing, at
Yes.
the thing that most men don't have even a consciousness for. But as soon as they
Mm.
have a consciousness for something, they don't want to look at that. They don't want, but you are always willing to look. And that
It's
I love about you. And that's, of course, the part inside of me that I feel called to look.
mm,
And that's what men have to do. And that's what we're here to inspire in men. So thank you for being on that journey with me, brother.
that's great. Thank you,
Um,
man.
I don't
I
think
want
I'm complete.
I'm going to wrap up with just that looking is we've never felt safe to look. In
Mm,
fact, we are shamed, blamed, punished early on in our life in many different ways, family dynamics, school dynamics, on the job, you know, wherever we're at, social atmospheres. There is this active make wrong when certain things show up and that cause us to want to hide elements of ourself. And so that's where we begin to lose power. And it always starts, small for most of us. Some of us have more extremes of abuse and violence happening, but it can start very tiny and then it starts to pile up like a snowball
mm,
rolling downhill, picking up more snow. It's like, and over time, we lose so much power. And unless we start inquiring deeply through this type of work, we can never reclaim the power. We need to be safe to look at that stuff. But the automatic, unconscious fact is that we already don't. So we actively avoid what we need to be with. And someone like myself who's been doing this work for 26 years, just to get some real context, there's still so many things that I find that I haven't looked at or seen.
mm,
And I'm about it day in and day out for 26 years straight. And I coach and I lead. I've been doing that. And even I am finding facets of my soul that have never been met by my pure consciousness. And
mm.
so I can say that this is so needed. And if you're willing to come back into power and restore your life and have life that you've never even known before, then the Invincible Man group is the place where that can begin for you.
Mm. Beautiful.
Yeah, man.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you, brother. As always,
Yeah.
this is a real joy and a blessing.